A lot of punches, but there it is. Welcome back to part 2, RCA model WT110A tube tester, repair and restore. Already back to work this morning. I'm starting to change out these parts. I've already replaced the selenium rectifiers with 2 silicon rectifiers. Just use 1N4007s. Just clip the wires going to the selenium rectifiers, so that eliminates them. They're not in circuit anymore. There's my 2 1N4007s. I'm going to put some heat shrink on these 2 connections. I should have that. In part 1, we've already replaced this 15 ohm resistor, so that's new. I'm going to check these. I think there's 4 resistors. 5. That's 2 in parallel, yeah. But we'll check the values of all 5 of these and see if they need to be changed. All right, those are all testing good. We had 2 more selenium rectifiers underneath. This one, this side, which is a lower part, and that's this 14-volt source. This one. And then the other one, this top one, this one here, CR4, goes to the calibration control for bias calibration. Set your minus 12 volts bias. We just clip the plus lead off. And we're using the anode side for a tie point and a connection point. And a little heat shrink over the ends. Okay, let's see what our voltages say. I expect them to be higher because silicons are a little more efficient than the seleniums. And yes, it is. We got 133 volts. When you put a card in, power this up, there's no indication on the front panel that tells you that it's on. So I added one. That's just a little 3-volt LED through a 1000 ohm resistor to the 12-volt source. And now, when we turn the tester on, we have an indicator. Wasn't necessary, but that's just me. If you happen to forget that you left the tester on, there's really no way of telling that unless you looked and seen that you had the lever in the on position and had a card in it. So this way I can tell if I accidentally leave it on, I'll see that red light. All right, all the caps replaced. 2 new electrolytics there. New electrolytic, 0.047. 2 more 0.047s. And electrolytic under there. And I have turned it back on and still works fine. So we're through with replacing parts. Before I put all of this back together, I will clean this switch, clean the tube sockets, spray a little cleaner down in here where these contacts are, where the card reader is. All right, clean the switch, tube sockets, lube this cam mechanism, pivots. It's working smooth. So let's get this put back together. Put the knobs on. Put the gear shift knob on. And this little bumper pad was wore down, so we put a new one. I'm going to try, see if we can get some of this surface rust cleaned off. Well, I'm trying some evapor rust. Just put it on with this toothbrush, and we'll let it set, see what happens. Well, turned out much better than I thought it would. While a lot of the finish is gone, that evapor rust got rid of the rust. It looks pretty good. Done these and the latches and the handle. Now we're going to work on the latches on this cover and these two corners also. Really happy with the amount of rust we was able to get off. And after getting most of that rust off of the latches and the corners and the handle, just put a little top coat of clear just to keep it where it's at, maybe keep the rust from coming back. Just brushed it on. Also, I found this label laying inside the tester, and there was glue residue on the top about the size of that label, so I'm assuming that's where it went, and I just glued it back. So now that we have everything back together, let's check a tube one more time just to confirm that everything's working okay. I'm going to check a 6DQ6. We have the lever in the insert position, and we just flip this over. You can hear it hit that switch, and that little slot right there positions the card where it's supposed to be. Pull back on the lever, tube in. Let's see the filaments lighting up. And then meter's working, tube's checking good, but let's calibrate. And we're pretty much right in the middle. We have a good tube. If you have any kind of a short in the tube, whether it be cathode, G1, G2, or the plate, this is a neon and it will come on. Now, you will see it flash, but unless it stays on, that tube is good. The instructions also said to tap on the tube as you run through these positions. This is a new tube, so I'm sure it's a good tube. If it comes on and stays on, and you do have a shorted or leaky tube. You can also check it for gas, and you put this in the gas position. You note the reading on the meter. Pull this switch down to where it's in the gas position, and you watch the meter. But if the meter moves to the right, then you got a gassy tube. And back in the quality, and it's good. One other thing I wanted to mention on this tester, most of these that I've seen have lamps in these two positions where this says fuse, and both here and here. I really think that it's a later version that they replaced the two lamps with the fuses. Reason I say that, I found a service update. You notice this does say supplement number 2 and destroy supplement number 1, so that tells me this is a later version. This first revision is the 56 ohm resistor, where they have added it into the B plus line, so this tester does have that. The second revision is where they've added a fuse called F2, 250 milliamp. Here we see it says, and other instruments having code number 457, F1 is located inside the WT110A and F2 is mounted in the front panel. And finally, we see that F2 was changed to a 0.175 amp, and F3, a 6 amp filament fuse, was added to the front panel. Let me know what you think. One more thing I've noticed, on the lid on some of these, there's red writing. It says code E with special instructions. Possibly these important instructions in red were on the early versions of this tester. While cards for the most popular tubes are included with the tester, what do you do if you run into a tube that you don't have a card for? Well, you can make your own test card. Now, this tester came with a master punch card, but it's missing. So I don't have one, but I'm going to attempt to make one. It's just a card the same size as the test cards, but all the possible hole locations are punched in that card, and they're labeled with rows and columns. So when you look a tube up, it will tell you what row and what column to make a mark, and that's where you would punch the hole. Here's a cardstock I was able to find to make the new master punch card, and does have to be trimmed. See, it's bigger, so we just mark the side and the top, trim this part out right here, and make sure we mark our little notch there at the bottom that positions the card in the tester, and make sure we make a punch here for that rod to go through that holds those cards in the tester. And it's almost exactly the same thickness. The original cards check right at 15 thousandths, and this cardstock same. I'm going to take a pencil, draw in each circle to go through that whole deck of cards just in the tester. But I think when we get to the end of all of those cards, we should have most of the holes marked. There's my progress so far. Just lay the card on, line up all the holes that have already been marked, and you can see this one only has 2 positions here and here. That would be new. That's the way I'm doing it. Okay, that should have all the punches marked. And these are labeled from A to N. the columns A through N, and then the rows start at the bottom, 1 through 10. Just need to punch these out and we should have us a master punch card. I'm punching these out with a 1/8 inch punch, and this is a 2-inch reach. It's what you have to reach to the center of the cards. But I'm punching these out 1/8 inch. The actual test card that you make, that's 5/32 of an inch. Now, good luck trying to find a 5/32 punch. I was able to find a 3/16, which would be 6/32. And I'm hoping that's not too large and it'll still work. But the test card will be 1/8 inch. And another good thing about using the 1/8 inch, you can look down through your punch, center the punch right in my circle. A lot of punches, but there it is. Now all we need to do is test it to see if it works. Just to confirm that my master card is okay, I just used this scrap piece of cardstock and I've made a card for a 9BR7. So we have our card in, lever pulled back. Let's see if we get anything. And we got a filament. It's a good sign. Hey, and we got a good tube. This is a permanent punch card I just made for the 9BR7. So let's try it and see if it works. Put the tube in. And we got an indication. Good tube. And a good test card. Now this is a 3/16 punch. That's what I used for the new card I made. Slightly larger than the holes in the original cards, but not by much. And more importantly, it worked. Now we have a way of making test cards for those tubes that aren't in these cards here, aren't listed, as long as they're the 7-pin, 9-pin, or the 8-pin octal. 4-pin and 5-pin tubes, yeah, well, you have to have an adapter to test those, but very seldom I need to test a tube like that. And I do have the old Precision right over there, and it'll test a lot of those 4 and 5-pin radio tubes. Well, we're going to call that a successful venture. Master punch card, put it in with the other cards. Also have a good supply of blank cards to make new test cards. These are 5.5 by 8.5. Do have to trim them when I make a card, but they're the correct thickness. There's a pack of 100. I've used about 5, counting the test card I made. So plenty left. And just for kicks, let's check some of these caps that I replaced. And my solar cap checker. It's a good checker for putting voltage on the caps. That's what I like about it the most. You can put up to 500 volts, determine if a cap's leaky. Now this first electrolytic's only rated at 150 volts. As far as leakage, that's 100 volts. We went off, so that's good. At 200 volts, It's went off. That cap's working up to 200 volts of leakage, so it would probably be perfectly fine to have left that, but wanted to change them all anyway. All right, these paper caps are 0.047 at 400 volt. All right, let's go to leakage. That's on 100 volts, trying to go off. 200, it stays on. 300. Definitely leaky. And all three of the paper caps were leaky, even at 100 volts. Well, I hope you enjoyed the restore and repair on this RCA model WT-110A tube tester. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Well, we hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, how about giving us a like? And we'd love it if you would subscribe to our channel. Thanks.